Right, so I've added some chat commands in here now, so if you want to know what the commands are, you can type exclamation commands. Try and get a little chat thing on the screen, like up here for the, if you put like exclamation like, but I don't think that's working because the, well, I say that, I don't think the string is working that shows it. Maybe the comments are. Let me just do another one. Yeah, so the count's working in the chat, but this little kind of show off chat likes at the top doesn't seem to be working. Let me see if I can edit that live 1 second. See if we know why it's not working. Oh yeah, I've got a glitch on this install, so I can't edit that on this screen either, which is a bit of a pain. But that's Rusty crying. Got a little crying pug. Right, won't be involved. Right. Get on here a minute. Yeah, you bet. Oh, you want your treats because you got paid. We try to get you on camera. See if we can move this around. This way. There he is, there's your payout. And now you've got to get a new bed fund. Get a new one of them. Alright, gonna get on with work now. Oh yeah, that chat light's worked actually at the top now. It's just very delayed, so see the little thing at the top. If you want to join in on the chat, you can just do exclamation like and it'll just add that. It's just a bit of fun on the chat thing, and then we should be able to do like socials as well. I've set a bunch up of normal things, so you do that and it'll pop up like links for you if you want to know the socials. If you want to know the Discord, you can do Discord, stuff like that. So if you just type exclamation commands, it'll pop up and tell you what, you know, the options you've got basically. But I'll stop spamming my own chat now. So what we were working on is the 1ASIC re-PCB, and it fully works first time on the VA45. So if we just check this load sign, there we go. So we know this is already working, and now we just need to get this wired into a clean screen. I've checked the actually I'm going to leave that plugged in. I've checked the schematics and there won't be a wire-free version for the V3. I've had to wire this in a way that won't work for the V3. It just never had the support through the connector for it, so the V4 that's coming out pretty soon, it'll be plug and play. So for now we're going to have to hand wire this in. The left side can be flex ribboned, but the right side we're going to have to hand wire. So the first thing we'll do is try and hand wire this in first to make sure the screen works so we can get these ordered. And then we'll move on to an Xbox original, doing some RAM upgrades on it. There, I've been hiding overlays I think by mistake, I never noticed that. So yeah, that still works, still there, yeah, we go. The chat seems to be delayed again, so I can see it in my screen but it's not showing on screen yet. It's probably just the stream stabilising. Right, so let's just get these wired in on this side now, which is going to be for the VA45. I've got to, oh, the screen's dark. we go. So on VA45, anywhere there's an M, we need to solder in. So we've got the invert or anywhere in brackets. So the invert is for the VA45, D1, D3, D5, D0, D4, D2, and then M clock and V sync. And I don't think it uses a H sync, I can't even remember myself. So anywhere there's brackets, we've got to hand solder these in basically. So we'll start with, I might fix this, might just tape this in a minute so it doesn't flap about. I can move it over. So let's move him out of the way. Tape down there for now. So that'll fix it in. So peak lock we don't need, invert we do. And then the only thing with the VA45s is the SMS mode is pretty poor. It's a very low colour mode. So SMS don't look great on the VA45, it's kind of a downside to it. How much to fix bat detector? We've stopped working, to be honest, on random stuff at the minute, just because the amount of work we get in we can't keep up. So we used to work on pretty much anything, but at the minute we only work on the consoles that are listed on the site and don't currently have any plans to change it yet, unless, you know, we free up some time basically. So we've got invert, we will need, I don't think we need ground, ground is this side, so we don't need ground or 5 volts. SMS, I believe, I'll probably need to check the schematic to be honest on the SMS pin, I'm not sure whether that's on the other side. I suppose actually the quickest test for that is just continuity, and see if we get the SMS on the clean screen connected to the SMS on the re-PCB. So let's just go into continuity mode, and then ground we can check we've got as well while we're here. Ground's up there, so ground's already connected by the left, so is 5 volts. SMS, yeah, so those are already connected by ultimately the left ribbon, so we don't need any of those. So the next one we'll need is going to be D0, and obviously because the VA 1, VA0, 1 and 2 have data pins, you know, 0, 1, 2, 3, they're not the same as the Majesco pins, so even though we're going to wire this D0M to D0, it's not the same as the D0 coming through here basically, so you just have to solder from the re-PCB any points in brackets to then the names on the clean screen. And obviously the clean screen has to be the VA45 one, because there's currently 2 different code bases, so when the 4 comes out it's going to be a single code base that handles both, but until then you have to get a specifically programmed one. Hey Gary, welcome into the new stream. We'll see if these chats are working. So the bot doesn't seem like the bot is working on, let me try the same command. See if it works for me. So it looks like the command works for maybe Twitch. It should be working for Facebook, but it doesn't seem to be working for some people. It's definitely commented the same way. And it also doesn't pull in. So yeah, we still need to probably work on them chat commands. They're in there partially, but it looks like a few things aren't working. But we'll see as we go. We'll keep an eye on what's not working, and I'll try and look at why. So that follow thing didn't work. Yeah, this is a re-PCB, so it's a brand new PCB I've designed for the Game Gear. But this is for specifically, now we're testing a VA45 setup and installing a clean screen. We just need to do it by hand wiring at the minute, because the V3 doesn't support the ribbon for the VA45s yet. I'll try to keep my head out the top down camera as well. So D1, we'll go to, where's D1? D1's there. And if anyone's in, I don't think we get many people in Twitch, if anyone in YouTube wants to try commenting something like the like or the follow, to see if it works in certain platforms. I've got a feeling it's just going to be not working in certain platforms, maybe Facebook. So the next one is D5. Yeah, you missed Rusty getting his treat. He's buggered off now. Whatever you rewind the stream, he had a treat at the start. This wire is just, I think it's 28 AWG enamel wire. You just grab it off AliExpress, and if you just type enamel wire, you'll normally find the wire. You have to just burn off the insulation with, I find the quickest way is to burn it off with a blob of solder on your iron, and that strips the insulation back. And I brought red because a lot of people used to say all the time, it looked like we were using bare wire, because the what am I doing, trying to put wire on, not solder. The typical enamelled wire just comes with clear varnish on, so it looks like you've got exposed copper when you haven't. So I brought the red stuff so people didn't keep commenting that we're soldering bare wires to boards, basically. Now we're working on this re-PCB, so a remade Game Gear board. Basically this is one I've made for supporting the chips, and we are using these original VA45 boards and transplanting just the ASIC over to the new boards. And it's basically a prototype at the minute, so we're testing everything works correct, but so far so good. How much does our Game Gear go for? I can pull up a few prices. I think we've got a staged approach now on the builds. You can select mods, so if you went to ready-made Game Gear, I can chuck it on the screen and you can see what I'm on about. I think I can chuck that over, I've done it right. Why is screen capture not working as well? Edit, Screen 2, done. Wicked, the screen capture's messed up. And just toggle back and forward. There we go, I think I just had to toggle. So now, if you went to Retro 6 and you went to the home page, you can go to Ready Made, and then Game Gears are here. So you've got a starting price at $250 with VAT, or it'll be like $200 if you're not in the UK, you won't pay the VAT, so it'll get it for like just $200. You can select all your shells. You can select the re-PCB, which is this thing here that we're doing. You can select if you want the games on the flash card, retro sticks, clean juice, clean amp. So by default they come with, on the Game Gear specifically, new power boards and audio boards. Because the originals are so bad, we don't really offer the Game Gears with original power and audio boards, because we just can't keep enough of them in stock. They just fail too often, basically. The modern battery is the clean juice, which we sell, and we will be doing a clean juice that recharges AA batteries if you don't want to use custom LiPos as well, so that'll be coming soon. Enamel wire, I just prefer the enamel wire, because if you melt Kino wire, then it can roll up the wire a bit easier, so I tend to just like the visual look of the enamel wire. But they're both pretty much the same. This one I've covered and taped up, but it is DAT4, is it? No, DAT1 then DAT4. So this one's actually DAT1 here. And I'll probably, I don't know whether I can move them labels any because there's nowhere for them to go. But I could do with, actually, that can't be DAT1 because we're already on DAT1. Let me just check the schematic, save me lifting up the board again. No, DAT3 then DAT4. So this one's DAT3 that I'm on now. Now this one below is DAT4. And then we've got DAT2 now, I think it's the last data pin. And I don't think I'll bother with the left, because we're not bothered about opening the menu for now. That's not going to be a problem. I might wire it in, but for now probably won't bother with like the left pad. M clock we're missing. M clock is where? Where have we missed M clock? VSync M. So we've got VSync. Why can I not see M clock? Ah, M clock's down here under there. So yeah, I could ideally do with moving these labels, but like I said, I don't think there's any room to move them anywhere. think there's just VSync left. And then we'll see if the screen works. That's all of them out. So what do we reckon? Do we think it's going to work first time like the other one or not? Xbox upgrade, we're doing quite a bit on it. It's having a new hard drive, 128 meg RAM upgrade. I think it's having HDMI, might be wrong, but I'll just do probably just show off the 128 meg RAM upgrade and then move on to other bits. Yeah, the solder is leaded. Lead free will still flow, but they've all got flux inside the core of the lead, like inside the core of the solder. Don't know whether the microscope will. The overhead camera will pick that up or not. You probably will, with how good this is. If I go to here, and then here, and then I don't know, for focus distance, there maybe, because I don't know if this is going to pick up focus. If I do like say there to try and focus on my finger, and now got a focus point. If we zoom in all the way, so you can just about see it. So see that dot in the centre? That's flux. So the smoke that comes off this is the flux. It's not the lead. It's not the tin or the lead. It's literally that tiny bit of flux inside the core. It's called obviously flux cored solder, but all solders pretty much have flux inside, except really fine solder. So that's why I don't use like 0.3mm solder, because the finer the solder, the less flux, and then you have to apply extra flux as well. Camera amp upgraded on an Xbox One fat version. As in the OG Xbox, yes. I'm not sure about any other Xboxes. We don't really do the RAM upgrades on any other ones, to be honest. The 128 meg doesn't really add any benefits at the minute. It's just more for the fact that they're now all modded and people can install custom games, make custom stuff, or run specific apps that can then make use of the extra memory. But for stock games, if you're just going to play the original games, there's pretty much no point in it. It's more of a future-proof thing. What we're working on is a Game Gear. So it's what's called a Majesco, a VA45, and this is a new circuit board I've made for it to replace the old circuit boards here. So if these die and fail, or there's trace rot and things, we just take the ASIC off here and put it on the new board. So I think we're good to test. We know the ASIC's working because we saw it working on the original board. So if this doesn't work, there's a problem with I'd say more our wiring than anything if this doesn't work, is the most likely cause. But hopefully if everything's gone right, this will just work. I don't think it will though, somehow. Oh, look at that. Almost. So it's working but very glitchy. So we might need some smoothing caps on or something. You can see you've got quite a lot of ripple and shake on that. So working generally, but we've got some slight issue somewhere. And to be honest, this kind of ripple can be caused by a bad clean screen or IPS. It's rare though, it doesn't normally look that bad. get into, and typically the way I'd tell if this was a bad screen is to open up the menu. So let me just put that left pad on. Actually, I can get in the menu without the left pad. Let me just do that and open the menu. If the menu's got ripple, it's a clean screen issue. Maybe I do need that wiring. I think it's me floating, so let me chuck the left pad on. There's a point. I didn't add any test pads for the buttons on the front. Yeah, so add that then. We'll probably just try swapping the IPS first, see if that helps. Probably nick this one. No different, so yeah, just put my finger on it, fixes it. So if I just push my finger down on like here to just remove some noise, you can see if I keep it firm, it's all stable. So I've got a feeling if I let go now, it'll just noise again. It's either the wiring or a bit of noise that we need to suppress. So we could probably swap the clean screen board over, or it might just need to be that the data pins we add a little bit of resistance to stop the glitching, because literally just putting my finger over like DAT4 here seems to, you have to push a little bit firm, like say there, but then once I do that, completely stable image. So yeah, that's working, I'm happy with that. I'll figure out I'm not going to try and figure out that glitch on camera, because that'll be oscilloscope probing, messing around, but I'll figure that out. It's either just going to be the clean screen, or like I say, we'll have to put a bit of maybe cap debounce on the data pins, or maybe the clock pin. The one thing this board is missing, not that it matters because it's M clock, it's missing a cap on the C clock, which might be causing that, but seems to be specifically, is it V-Sync it's going to be on? Yeah, I think that's the V-Sync, so that my finger's basically over, really, those three wires, but covering the data pins, that had just changed data. The V-Sync is about locking the frame, so it's going to be related to that V-Sync pin, so I could probably put my finger on over here and stop it just the same in theory. Maybe. Yeah, interesting, maybe not. No, so you have to put it on over here. Yeah, so that could actually just be fracture on there. It's probably just this clean screen board. So I'll probably fix that after. But that's that one all working anyway. Let me just show you what I mean about the SMS games. I bet I haven't got any on here. Bet we haven't got Castle Illusion everywhere, have we? I don't know where that's gone. You got Castle Illusion on that? So this is Master System games, and on the Majesco this is the biggest downside of them. They're very limited to colour, so they pretty much interesting. Or was that just a failed load? Yeah, I think that's noise. You can see the thing not wanting to load actually as well. Yeah, it loads that. Doesn't load that. So it might be the using the noisy USB and not a proper power supply might also not be helping this. Yeah, that's, you can see the light flickering. There's definitely something going on with the power. I think just maybe using this USB power isn't good. Let's get some ribbons. Yeah, you missed Rusty's at the start of the stream if you start of the stream if you went back to the start he was fed. Welcome in, Jake. Thanks for the good luck. So far it's working in a sense. We've got Sonic working with a bit of noise. That is that zoomed out all the way? Yeah, so you can see how it's on screen but flickers a bit. But if we just push a finger down on the clean screen on the V-Sync, everything seems to stabilise and work. So I'm pretty sure that's just a clean screen issue. But I was coming to show the Master System's off, and either this Castle of Illusion just doesn't work, or we've got an issue with the SMS mode. Oh, there you go, it's just actually tried to load. So I think that is going to be a bad game, or a bad oh, hang on, is the SMS pin different maybe? Yeah, so you can see it's trying to load there, but something's not right. I think we've just got a bad clean screen here, because that shouldn't be acting different. Yeah, and that's like stable on boot, so let's reset. Yeah, that's not going into, that's not detecting the SMS mode basically. So, but they're minor things I'll fix and figure out before release. The main thing is we can see that the game loads and we've got the game audio and everything, so I know it's obviously working for the most part. I just need to figure out that instability flicker and if this game's working or not, but I'll sort that out after. That's like I say, it's a no major issue. I know that's going to be easy to fix. But one thing I'll just check quickly is if it's just a case of the USB test port I'm using might be dirty, because it's not really a filtered input when you power it from the USB cable. So let's just try with a real power board, just to see if that helps with the flicker. There, got that there. So, does it make any difference having a proper power board or not? No, so power board's no different, it's still flickery. So probably just yeah, it's definitely the clean screen, because you can even push on the shifters up here. Bending the clean screen board seems to fix it, or it could even be this ribbon over here. So that's definitely just a clean screen or solder issue on the ribbons. Let's just try this once more. Yeah, so with stability down there. Yeah, and that still doesn't, like I say, the SMS mode isn't responding correctly, so I'm going to wage the clean screen's the only issue on that, but I'm not going to, like I say, swap all that clean screen board over for now. I just wanted to test it definitely works. So we'll leave him to one side for the minute, and I'll finish all that off later. Put that in. Where have I put that board now? There. Welcome in from Germany, Tobias. I don't know that I saw that or missed it. That's the Game Gear sorted. Consoles complete nightmare. Yeah, I've had tons. I've had mostly arcade machines, multi-mega, Megatechs, not multi-megas. I've had the Megatechs. I've had Naomi's that are a pain. The Apple SE30 was a pain because I knew nothing about it, so that was just more lack of knowledge why that was difficult. GBC Clean Power, yeah, they're good. If you put the Clean Power on, make sure you put the cap on as well, the extra cap that should come with the kit that sits just above it. A lot of Game Gear's back for modding, as in people have repairs and they have mods. It's pretty much the main thing. People will send Game Gears and Game Boys. They are the main thing we do. And most people will pick clean screen, clean juice, like maxed out basically. If they go for a Game Gear, they normally go for completely maxed out. That's like the standard. It's a different value, so the cap is, I think it's 680 or either way it's something like 400, between 400 and 800, whereas the original's like 100. So the only time you'll notice is if you use a clean amp and you turn the volume up max, you'll get the console resetting. So you ideally want that cap on. Right, Xbox. Is it all screwed in? I can actually lift it out easy. So screwed. This as well. Alright, so now we have in a crystal green Xbox original. This is now up and running and working. We've got an X-Blast in just to allow us to test when we're doing these RAM chips. You can test one at a time. But I just thought I'd show you the technique of soldering these in because it can be quite tricky for some people. Beyond repairs, fairly up to the customer really in one way. If we look at something, we can tell roughly if it's going to be worth repairing under a standard kind of cost. But there's cases where people will pay above and beyond to get theirs fixed because it's not necessarily about the value of buying another console, it's if it's sentimental. So we can usually tell pretty much from the start if it's like major corrosion. If not, then it can be you start working on it for the base diagnostics cost with a goal of figuring out if you think you know enough to get to the end, and you try to give a customer an accurate cost at the start, but we won't normally go above the initial cost without knowing how much it's likely to cost to fix, basically. How many walls of drawers do we have? Pretty much the entire room is full of them. So we've actually got all them on the back wall for every console. Every console we repair all the way, and then if we swing it all the way around, we've got obviously the stream, a bit of fresh air, and then we've got all the customers' consoles, even more boxes, more boxes, more boxes everywhere you look. And there's more than that. There's under the desk, under the floor, under our feet. Obviously we have to have enough boxes for all the stuff we work on, basically all the AVs and powers, controllers, drives, chips, all sorts. The wire, let me try and find a link because quite a few people try and buy this wire. Let me just see if I can find on AliExpress for you, and then I'll show you the well, I can find it. I'll just log in and go to the basket basically where I ordered it from, then I can get you the link. Will have been a while ago though. There we go. So pull that up. That's the wire I'm using right now. So it's just, if you'll find this link still, you can see the item number here. This is the item number you need, which is just on screen for the vertical as well. 1005 00556 1732437. So if you search that in AliExpress, you'll get this, but it's just called red magnet wire enamelled, and that's what you see me using all the time on here basically. New clean power for Sega Saturn was done. Yeah, it solved all the issues on the VA0. We've had, specifically I sent the prototypes to 2 people that had the Saru rebooting, and it fixed it for them. So it should be, I've never seen it myself, but it should be a guaranteed fix. That's in production now, and should be 4 weeks probably, because China have just gone on holiday, so we're a week down. But yeah, that should be, hopefully fix any issues we had on the random Sega Saturn issues with memory card mainly, wasn't it, I think, and sometimes people would just see a random reset on VA zeros. We shouldn't see that anymore now. Right, so for the RAM upgrade on the Xbox originals, you can see you've got 2 RAM here and then 2 empty slots, and on the back you've got the same thing, you've got 2 RAM, 2 empty slots. So what we can do is buy the, if I try not to bend these pins because they're quite flat, but you can buy the original chips, so these are exactly the same chips, and we can just solder the extras on in the slots, and it should give us the RAM upgrade. The reason I add this though, get XBlast on an Aladdin chip, and I've taken this out and programmed it specifically with XBlast, because if you start soldering on these RAM chips and even one of them's bad, or any single pin is bad, or even if you just put one on, the whole system won't boot. You'll not get into any OS except XBlast to be able to find out what's gone wrong. So unless you're really confident in your soldering on these, then you definitely want to do an XBlast mod chip before you start working on them. And now we can confidently let me focus on that, confidently install these. So I'm just gonna chuck all these chips on in one, and I think that's quite focused, right? There we go. I'm just going to chuck all these chips on in one go, but I'd recommend you doing one at a time, because if things go wrong it can be harder to figure out basically. So probably don't do what I'm about to do, which is just chucking them all on in one go, but I'll show you the process. So they haven't got solder on initially, so we need to tin these pins up first. Is the iron on? There we go. And with these being old pads, you can see it doesn't really want to flow very well. So see how it's like dry and doesn't want to flow. So this will just take a few goings over, and then you might want to desolder wick it back off. And then go back over again, because these have obviously been exposed and oxidized from years and years ago. So you can see that really doesn't want to flow nice. And what we might do as well is just pre-warm this board up a little bit, so the board's generally hotter when we're working on it. Thanks, I'm glad you like the Game Gear PCB. It's the second one we've made now, so second one pretty much worked first time as well. Similar to the first, I just made a couple of trace issues on the board. Seems to be the only major thing. So that's warmed up a bit now. Let's try and flow the solder on. Makes it a little bit easier, not much. The main issue is just the fact that these pins are already oxidized from being exposed. They're not gold plated, so well they are gold plated underneath likely, but they've been tinned, so all the tin is exposed. So normally stuff, you've seen me tin up the PCBs, normally tinning up takes seconds, but like I say, this is due to the age of these pads. Yeah, the fumes are probably not the best for me. I do have an extractor, I'll turn it on. I just I forget so often when I do the stream, just because I'm not always doing the soldering. Then when I come to do the soldering, I don't pay attention. I don't know how harmful they are, to be honest. They're obviously not good breathing in fumes of any kind, but in terms of level of severity, I'm not really sure, to be honest. But I should definitely put the extractor on when I'm tinning up. I did say I'd love to get an actual solution to like the fume extraction issue. I don't mind paying money, but I've never found a solution that works when you're hot airing, basically, because the hot air just blows the smoke around anyway, so it's pointless when I'm hot airing, which is a lot of what I do. So let's take a look at that. See, the pads still don't want to tin the best. There doesn't look like a lot of solder on a lot of these pads. There's definitely a bit of a pain to get these in. So let's just turn this extractor on a minute, and that'll help with most of these fumes. Let's just try to tin them up a bit more again. And it's just like the heat doesn't want to transfer well. And then it just eats up the solder flux, so they really are a bit of a pain to tin. I'd say this is like the main step you just take your time with, because once we've got the pads tinned, then the rest is quite easy. We're just going to hot air the chip on in seconds. But yeah, look at the blobs just don't want to move. You probably want a combination almost of hot air and your soldering iron on this to get them to flow good. See if that helps with flow. Not really, it's just the pads, so even though that's molten, just literally flows around the pads. Terrible. It's just unfortunately the quality of these pads on the boards. So we might just have to, once we've installed these, might just have to run the iron down, we'll have to see. Because these definitely don't want to tin up easy at all. And we shouldn't need that much on. Move the PCB structural solder joints with large loss of solder. Cannot get the pins and solder to heat. It all depends if there's contamination on the board. So it's similar to this probably. If you've got contamination, you're going to have to just keep using flux and solder and reflowing. It might just be purely a thermal issue though. If you've got big pads, you either use hot air to warm the whole board up first, or get your iron at the hottest temperature with the largest tip, basically, is what I do. You're more than likely just you're either dealing with a heat transfer issue or contamination stopping stuff sticking. But if the large pads, it's probably just more the fact you haven't got enough heat yet. Right, so for soldering these on, it'll go the same way as this. So if we see the Samsung writing there and the dot here, this has got the dot in the same place. So the Samsung's going to be in the same place. It's going to be facing this way, basically. Yeah, basically the new solder isn't sticking to the pads great. That's just because the pads are oxidized, so basically contaminated. Plus I think it's trying to absorb a lot of the thermal. So as well as the iron not being able to transfer the heat enough, we've got the dirty pads as well. So now I'm just going to do the same. Probably show you from here a second. I'm just going to get this zoomed in. I wonder if this angle's good for showing this off. Yeah, not bad. You'll go like here. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to avoid obviously this plastic, avoid the heatsink above up here. So I'm going to aim diagonally down. I'll just zoom out a bit, you can see. I'm just aiming sort of into the board down here, diagonally down, so we don't melt any plastics. I'm just going to warm up similar to the Game Gear A6, so probably a minute above. And we don't mind too much about the position, we just don't want it to be too far off. And then when I do that, we will see, you'll start to see bubbling on the pins, and once they start to bubble, well, this thing's likes to blow around a lot. Might just turn the airflow down a little bit on this, considering it wants to fly everywhere. Once it starts to bubble, it'll adhere to the board, and then it'll lose all its heat again because the board will absorb the heat. So once you've got the solder to bubble, it will be probably another 30 seconds after that. So you might think as soon as you see the bubbling, like see how it's starting to bubble now, and things start to flow, you think this might not be far off, but you've got about half the time it took to get to this point again, because the first thing that will happen is the chip bonds to the board, and the board dissipates the heat from the chip and everything cools back down. So the indication when it starts bubbling is to then go closer. And now we've probably got, you basically want to see the entire chip bubbling. So see this pin here is still grey, that's not reflowing. So you want to see every pin start shining. So see that one's still grey. And when that turns there, see it shining, that's what you want to see on every pin. Once you see that on every pin, I tend to push down on the chip, just to make sure there's any slightly bent legs. So we push down gently, to try not misalign anything. Go back over the pins. And then, while it's nice and hot, grab the flux, run a fresh bead around. And that'll do two things. One, it'll cool down the chip slightly, and two, it will rebubble the solder and make sure all the joins are made. So while that's cooling, let me just check the alignment under an actual scope, in case we're off alignment. So we could probably tweak you probably saw the top pins can probably be nudged slightly to the right. So let me just do that while I'm under the scope, before it cools down too much. There we go, it's perfectly in a line now. We're working on an Xbox original, so we are adding the extra RAM. Let me just zoom out so you can see. We're doing basically a 128 megabyte RAM upgrade from the 64 stock. So I'm just showing you the general technique to do that. Repair jobs, yeah, we accept them from all over the world. It can get a little bit expensive with obviously import tax both ways and shipping both ways, but we do get quite a lot of people sending things in international. Nowhere near as much as the UK, but yeah, we accept it from all over the world. flux is nearly gone. Yeah, I use the melamine sponge to clean. It works perfectly fine. It's one of the best ways to clean the board. Cleans everything off good. Now I said I was going to install all these chips, but I will test them one at a time, to be honest, because if we do get issues, these chips can still be bad, even if they're brand new, because they are effectively old stock. They're new old stock. They've not been used, but they are still. They've been produced a while ago, so there's no harm in just quickly powering it up to test. So we're going to need this. Controller port. Power fan. Now we'll need the controller and output. And power lead. Let's see, I think with the X-Blast as well, you need the controller plugged in before you turn the console on, otherwise the controller doesn't work. So let's just plug this in. And let's see what we get. There we go, so now we can go to settings, the tools, 1 to 8 RAM test, and this will be chip 4, so it's testing chip 4 now. And there we go. So that's how we now test as we go. We know chip 4 is okay, and we now know this is chip 4. This is probably going to be chip 3, and then on the underside will be chip 2 and 1. So we'll put this one on next, and I presume it'll be chip 3. I can never remember. But yeah, if one fails, then you know to stop and look at that specific chip, whereas if you install them all and then you get issues, one can interfere with the other as well. So if one fails, say chip 4 fails and shorts a pin out, it could say all of them are bad. So it really is advised to just, you know, check them one at a time. The views on the chat are not massively accurate, so there's the Twitch is probably right, we don't have anyone on Twitch. The YouTube seems to only show horizontal viewers, whereas portrait viewers there's a lot more. And at the minute on TikTok there's usually a few hundred people on TikTok, or 100 people plus on TikTok. I'm not sure where I see it. It tells me at the end when we end it, so TikTok isn't even shown on there. But yeah, the views are just a hint, they're not normally that accurate. This like counter up here I've just added to see if it works. You just type !like in the chat like that, and then it says there's 3 likes, but so far it seems to have only worked for me. So I don't know whether it's like I've just set it up, I don't know if it's limited to me, but you can see if it replies to you, and if the bot doesn't reply, then we know something's wrong, basically, because it should put your name in and reply, and it doesn't seem like at the minute it's working. So I don't know, it's probably a Twitch only thing. For some reason it should work on all. Oh, there you go. So it's picked up Liam's, which is on. Twitch, you see. So the Twitch one's picked up, and I think it's not linking in with the others, which is, maybe it's just something that it doesn't support, the Streamlabs thing, or maybe I've got it set up wrong. So I'll sort that out after. Up the top, the funds for Rusty's new bed. You can basically type !tip if you wanted to see the link, or it's basically streamlabs.com/retro6uk. I don't know why it puts the 1 in front though, because it should just be streamlabs/retro6, I think, without. Yes, let's see what retro6uk1 takes you to. Yeah, retro6uk1 takes you to the same place, so the link still works. And that'll just obviously go on that bar up there. I'll work on more of the commands and getting them actually works. It literally just looks like it's only working for Twitch, the commands at the minute, unfortunately. And nobody's on Twitch, so it's not much use. But I should be able to sort that out. Right, on to the next one. So same again on this pad here. And we didn't have much luck getting the solder to tin on here, so maybe we'll start with a bit of an IPA clean, and I'm half tempted with, I don't know if I've got it anymore, little fiberglass, I know what I'll use, let's try, just a light abrasive sandpaper, so I'm probably going to have to cut this down a little bit to be able to use it. So just a bit of wet and dry sandpaper on a sponge, and I think just gently file the solder pads, and just watch out for things like these caps and resistors, don't knock them off. I just want to try and add a little bit of scuff into it. I think better than this for how small this is would be a fiberglass pen, but I can't find mine. Yeah, it's not in there. And then I've got like a firm steel brush here, which actually that's probably quite good. Not going too abrasive, but yeah, I think that's a bit too abrasive myself. So let's see if that's helped at all. Let's see if this makes it flow any easier or not. Probably won't, but we'll see. Get the extractor on. You can use any stream, to be honest. We stream on obviously Twitch, Facebook, YouTube, TikTok, but Twitch has the most features. It's just we have no audience. I've never done anything on Twitch, so everybody knows me on TikTok. I've done YouTube for years, but nobody really knows us on Twitch, so it's probably just more so the fact that we haven't really got any people on Twitch yet. So still use Twitch, otherwise we're going to have 0 viewers. So you can be the supporter of the Twitch streams. Plus you can use the commands and nobody else can. That seems to have helped a little bit with the flow. It still struggles, but it does seem to have helped. Let me bump my iron up. I never do this, but let me bump my iron up to like 440. Let's get this iron hot. Probably going to kill me tip now, but see if this helps at all. Nah, it makes absolutely no difference really. It's just almost like the solder gets rapidly consumed. I wonder if it's just mixing with the tin on the board more so than not sticking, and then it's the factory solder that stops everything else sticking. I think that's about as good as this one's getting as well. What we're doing is Xbox original. So we're doing a RAM upgrade on the Xbox original, 128 megabyte, upgrading from 64. Yeah, how this is flowing is typically what would happen if you don't have enough heat. That's what you'd normally see if your soldering iron isn't hot enough. But obviously we know that isn't the case. We solder all the time, so it's obviously the footprint, the condition of the pads, or the existing solder on there that prevent it from flowing good. So we've got enough solder on now, I think, when we push down, so we should be alright. Killing the tips because I've turned it up to 440 degrees and it's a tiny tip, so the more heat you put through them, this will lower the lifespan of the soldering iron. So I'll lower it back down to 390 and then it tends to last longer. Right, so same idea again. We know this time the chip is going this way around. So basically the rule of thumb is they match the orientation of the chip closest to them. And we'll get it roughly aligned. And then I've got, in this instance, because that one blew around, I've just got the air set to 480 Celsius but 60 airspeed. So the airspeed's a bit lower than I'd normally be on. I'd normally be on 80. But we've seen this this footprint for this RAM causes it to move around a bit, like, funnily enough, the Game Gear 1 ASIC, that also seems to slide around more. Maybe it's this fine pitch on the chips that seems to make it slide. And then this will probably be about, I reckon, a minute above and a minute on, so a bit longer than the Game Gear. You can see it starts to bubble fairly early on, though. We've only been on it for probably 30 seconds, but this is now the flux bubbling and the chip bouncing. I'm just going to leave it to settle in and see where it ends up anyway, let it get warmer first. You can see we're one pin down here, but until everything else is warm, I won't try to nudge anything. See, all the solder on the actual motherboard is still not shiny, so we're a good way out yet. Once I see the motherboard start to get a little bit shiny, I tend to go closer. Right, we're getting somewhere close now. So I'll go for a slight nudge up. There we go, nudge that one up a little bit. And I'm going to push down just so we can get something actually attaching to the board. And now I think I want to probably align this under the scope, because that looks aligned now, but with me not using the scope it's a little bit difficult to confirm, but to be honest I think that's got it. I think we're in position there, so reflow for a few more seconds, get the flux while I'm pushing down, get the flux. And now just wait for that to cool and we'll clean the flux off. I don't think the board's treated. I think that is exposed solder. It's got no conformal coating on, it's just exposed pins. The varnish is generally the coating over the silkscreen area, but the pads are not exposed to that, so we won't have any varnish on that. I think it's just literally age of the solder. And the fact, to be honest, these boards are quite thermally conductive, so we probably just aren't getting enough heat through to tin them pads. I think what we'll try on the next one is we'll really warm the board up nice and hot before we try to flow solder on. I think that's the key. I think it's just not hot enough, simple as that. The obvious answer is probably the right one. Let's just have a double check on this one. That looks nicely aligned this time. Yeah, that all looks good to me. So we'll run that test again. This will have, yeah, twice as much basically. It'll have 128 meg rather. You can get 256 sticks now, which replace each one. You basically take the originals off and you can double it to 256, but I don't think there's hardly any support for it at the minute anyway, so not really much use until there comes out something that, you know, is a reason to even have this extra RAM. Yeah, probably best. We would be better warming up the board without a nozzle for preheating, but I don't think I want to bother taking the end off for now. It's a pain to get on and off, and I end up bending the metal. So let's pull that plug back in. So it's a little bit of a pain to have to obviously reconnect everything every time, but it's worth it because if you get issues, trust me, you want to know about them as soon as it happens. You don't want to do it after you've got 4 chips installed. I think that's actually got an issue. I think that's failing now. Yeah, so that's now got an issue, so it doesn't boot at all. So let's take a look under the scope. I'll probably leave it in there, to be honest, while I have a quick look. You have to mod the console as well to see, basically see if you have any extra RAM. It's not something that the stock dashboard supports at all. I've got one little tiny short on one of the pins. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and 6th pin down had a little short on. So that's probably the issue. And that's why we test as well, because if that happened after installing 4 chips, you wouldn't even know which chip to look at, or if there's no shorts but the actual chip is bad, you wouldn't have a clue. You'd be looking a lot longer to try and find where the issue come from. So let's see if this now works. Didn't plug the controller in, so now it's probably not going to recognise it. Nope. So power off and on again. Who's the guy behind? Zach stays off camera. Yeah, he does repairs, mainly all your Game Boys and Game Gears. That'll be Zach building them up. Let's go to tools. 128 meg RAM. So now that. So you see that is chip 1 then. So chip 1 is here. Chip 2 is probably then underneath that chip. Chip 3 is probably the one under this, and chip 4 is on top. So obviously the order doesn't exactly make logical sense, but once you do, you can make a map on this, I guess, and add it to the wiki so that we know which chips are which. But that's 2 working now, and that's all we do for that. So let's see if we can improve. Basically the issue we're having is tinning these pads. That seems to be the main time and struggle on this, so let's see if we can improve that. For repairs, it's just me and Zach, because about 5 or 6 of us in the company. The rest do all the online orders. I do all the customer service, websites, digital, advertising, stock ordering, some repairs. And then we've got packers that pack everything, obviously. Got someone that does all of the UV prints and stickers that we sell. And then we do, obviously, the repairs. Right, so now these look shinier underneath as well because they've not been exposed as much to the oxygen, I guess. Well, that's a real glare on camera. There we go. So this one's got a little bit more tin. Yeah, Zach's defo the Game Boy specialist. So what we're going to try on this, we're going to try, I think, heating the board up quite hot and then just going for reflowing it as if we normally would. Basically, like, just pretend we're reflowing the chip as we'd reflow any other chip. Just watch the plastic here as well. This is the heatsink on the other side. Yeah, what we're working on at the minute is, it should be in the title, it should be an Xbox original upgrade. I suppose I don't think I've put like the 1 to 8 meg upgrade, but we're basically upgrading the RAM on the original Xbox. So we've got the original Xbox here, and we're just adding the extra RAM chips to these empty sockets basically. And I'm just showing you the process of doing that, and we're trying to find the best way to get them on. Hot air is definitely the way to get them on, but what we're finding is getting the solder to stick to these pads is the biggest issue at the minute. So we're just trying, this is the 3rd attempt now at trying something different. I'm just heating these pads up now quite hot, and then once it's hot I'm going to reflow the solder as if, you know, I'm just reflowing a normal board that usually works, because I think we're just dealing with a thermal issue basically. I don't know, are you a good family member, Zach?
Not the best.
I'd say they're all a pain in the ass personally. Hardest to work with, for sure. But no, we've employed multiple people, not just family. It's just that family ended up being the ones that survived the business ups and downs, basically. Just don't bother to try and be a boss, though. You might as well just be like everyone else. You can't boss your family. Right, that seems to have worked a lot better. That's flowing much better. But the underside already looked shinier, so we might be dealing with the fact that the underside was already better. Yeah, this is flowing way easier. So heat seems to be the key on this one. But we'll try and reflow the final one without heat, in case it's just a simple case that the bottom is actually better than the top because it's not got as much oxidation. So that might have just worked without the extra heat, but that definitely seemed to work the best so far. So now just fresh flux, another chip, put it on the same way as this, so Samsung facing us, plonk him down. Yeah, we tried cleaning the board with the magic eraser on, I think, the 2nd attempt. Nothing seemed to help much. We even filed down with sandpaper on one of them. This one I've just used hot air to warm the board up before we put it down, and that seemed to work the best so far. If you want to get good at soldering without ruining stuff, you're not going to really. You kind of learn by ruining it. That's how you learn the extremes of where things work and where things fail. So just buy some donor consoles and practice. If you're not sure about how hot your iron should be, just turn it up and up and up until you start burning things, and then you realise your iron's too hot. Turn it down till the solder doesn't flow, and you realise it's too low. You're only going to really learn by playing around yourself, getting used to your equipment and seeing how things, what happens basically. The biggest issue most people have is not putting enough heat down though. Soldering irons, hot air, everybody seems to be afraid of just putting the heat down. Samsung for these chips is just because that's what the originals are. I'll probably use, the only thing I think I use Samsung wise specifically is just ceramic caps. It's that, or I think I use Yageo for resistors, Samsung for the ceramic caps, and then a bunch of brands for normal aluminium caps. So Alna is a good one, for example. Worth I've got some of, but there's plenty of good aluminium caps. This one's pulled miles out of alignment, so we've just got to be patient and wait until it fully solidifies before we can nudge it back into position. Or fully liquefies rather. That looks like it's now in position, so with us nudging it, let's just get a bit more flux on because we probably generated a few shorts there. Push down gently and reflow again. And then just come off and wait. Hot air, I've got 480 degrees Celsius and 60% airspeed, just because 80% keeps blowing these chips off. So with them being so thin, they're like super thin, super light chips. They're a lot lighter than most chips, they just blow off. So 480 and 60, and it takes about, I reckon that was what, 2 minutes to flow that on. Yeah, Retro 6 is still okay to order from, we're still fully in business. The company's 6 Retro Limited on HMRC. We're doing an Xbox original, installing the 128 meg RAM upgrade basically to give it double the RAM. But I've run out of IPA. The stock BIOS and stuff can't do anything with the extra RAM. It's all for like if you're modding it and adding extra hard drives and extra apps and stuff. Got any IPA? Don't know if this is leaking or whether I'm using that much of it. Yeah, I think tons of people ask for the hot air temps. Like I say, I don't really get why, because it's like every hot air can be different. Every board is different. Your technique and where you hold the iron is different. It's more about learning, just watching what happens to the solder, watching when it sort of liquefies, going closer until it's all liquefied. It's more about technique than the hot air. I could set this hot air to 300 degrees and still solder that chip. I could set it to 500 and solder the chip. So giving you a temperature and a speed is only really a guide. I get why people want a guide, but I can literally solder them at so long as the solder melts, you can solder to any temperature. Optimal's a different story. You want to really get the chip down as fast as you can without spreading the heat to the rest of the board. Like if I soldered this at 300, the heat from here, by the time I've soldered this, will have spread all the way out to here. Whereas soldering this at 480, you've got a much tighter spread of heat. So basically, experience is a big part of it. But yeah, I get why you want a starting point, I guess, but just take it as a starting point. Have you ever had a modded? What's that? I'm not sure what that is. Oh, modded console, didn't see the line below it. Ever had a modded console come in for repair that was a disaster? Yeah, plenty of them. They'll just, if they are a disaster, will often just recommend new consoles unless they're sentimental, and then customers can choose to just save money on the repair. But some people just want it repaired because it's theirs, so... if you're getting the frag issue as well, we just had it when we installed this one, and we just had a short on 2 pins. So if you mess up any one of these or you have a short, you're going to get frag straight away. So flash XBIOS to an Aladdin chip, the XBIOS OS, and then you can boot up well, you'll see now we're about to do it. We'll boot up in XBlast and you can test the RAMs individually, and this XBlast will boot with these RAM chips being added one at a time, whereas if we tried to boot this now with 3 working RAM chips and 1 missing, every other OS won't boot. So you have to really you need the XBlast really to be doing this, otherwise you can't successfully test. I should probably look at this under the scope as well, I've not even looked at it yet. You can't really test the RAM chips one at a time. Yeah, looks good enough from a glance, can't see anything glaringly obvious. So we'll connect this up again. And then you just got to make sure your controller's plugged in first for XBlast, otherwise it doesn't recognise it. So controller in before you put power on. Running over this cable now. Let's get that up on the screen and let's see if it still works. Not actually sure, I don't think that's working. Certainly trying to do something. That's a strange one, we have like a power cycle on this. Let's try that one again. Yes, there's defo something dodge on that one. So let's actually inspect it properly under the scope. More than likely with that one it's not a shorted pin, it will be a floating pin probably. Because it hasn't, it's just got a very strange boot cycle there. It's not even sure what it's trying to do. It's sort of never seen that before, so let's have a proper look at this chip. No, can't see anything at all wrong with that one. So we might just have a bad chip, this does happen. Yeah, I'll let you guys have a look, but I can't see anything at all wrong with that one. Zoom in. So it's this one we've installed. That's fully zoomed. Let me get the focus right. then we can also zoom in further. Try to just get so it's not. Let me see if I can focus that a bit better. That still seems slightly out. There we go. So they look okay to me. You also want to check where are we? These little resistor packs around, that you don't knock them and short them, things like that. But so far the soldering looks fine to me. They're all solid on. So the suspicion on this one would be, I'll try it once more in case something was touching, but I think this will just be a bad RAM chip. It does happen, like we've had them multiple times. That's nothing. No, so unless you guys saw anything there, it's the MOSFET 21st pin. What are we on about? This was fully booting before we put this RAM chip on, by the way, so it won't be anything outside of this RAM chip, I doubt. But if you're thinking it's like maybe the power supply or something, it won't be anything to do with that. It's definitely related to this RAM chip. So I reckon we've just got a bad RAM chip on there. Let's just try power up once more, like I say, in case something was just catching or shorting or gone wrong. And then if not, we'll just drop another RAM chip on. Let's see if this one does the same. Yeah, still doing some dodgy boots. That's definitely just a bad chip. So we'll swap that out. But you imagine if you'd have done all the chips like I was going to in one go, and then this happens, you wouldn't know. You literally would have no clue which chip was bad, because it literally could be any. Visually, there's no issue with it at all. So there's no shorts, nothing visually wrong with it. You'd basically have no idea what had gone wrong. So that's why you want to check one chip at a time. It's ideal. So it's most likely this. I can't see us doing anything else wrong, but it's just almost definitely going to be this chip. You don't need a hard drive because we've got the X-Blast plugged in. And like I say, this is working. We've checked each time we put a RAM chip on, so we know the whole system and boot up and process is good. It literally has to be related to this RAM chip, or, you know, if I accidentally knock something while I'm doing this, it could be something like that. But no, it's going to be this RAM chip basically is the most likely cause. Yeah, the Xboxes have empty slots except the 1.6 version, and then the 1.6 version you could still stack a chip on top and solder pins. It's a nightmare though, so we don't tend to offer that for the 1.6s. And then obviously you still have to edit the BIOS to be able to handle the extra RAM. The stock BIOSes won't recognise the RAM at all. And then same for a RAM checker. You technically could get one, but then you'd ideally have to have one where this fits in a socket almost, and I don't think there's really a socketed version of this chip, like, you know, something to test this in a socket. So that's that one off. And I might as well just drop the new one straight on, to be honest, while we're doing it. With a fresh flux. This back down. Yeah, they probably had the empty slots. They probably planned on either using either 8 meg chips instead of 16. I think they were all 16 each. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, they were 16 megabytes each, or megabits, whichever one it is. But they might have put the extra slots on in case they wanted to use 8 megs, or they maybe wanted to release it with 128 meg, and then realised they didn't need that much. So obviously, to save cost, they would reduce the amount. Ah, cool. So they were used in Sega arcades. Yeah, nice. Didn't know that. Let me just go under the scope to align this. It's already nicely aligned, pretty much. Older, easier to repair than newer. No, to be honest, I think the new ones are easy. There's far less on them, far less things that can go wrong. They're not old enough that you get trace damage. Pretty much every modern console fails on power regulation sides, or something that's literally blown up in your face and you can't miss it. There's rarely anything difficult about the modern ones, whereas the older ones can be, you're dealing with way more things it could be. Plus the knowledge of how the older systems work is a bit more lost than the new ones. The new ones are all the same architecture, like every single modern console and computer pretty much is a very similar architecture with a south bridge, north bridge, GPU, CPU, RAM, and then maybe some bus control. So and then obviously all your voltage rails are just modern regulators that work in a way that you can just open a datasheet and figure out. So I personally think the newer stuff's easier to repair. Yeah, I think the like on the chat unfortunately doesn't work on anything but Twitch at the minute, so it's something that I've got to try and fix. The Xbox 360s, you want to RGH them. There's a full guide on the wiki for how to do it and then put the Aurora dashboard on. The only warning with it is don't ever pull the power when you're glitching it with the SAL glitch, because you run the glitch to open up and read your CPU key. But if you don't power down with the power button, I've had it where it's corrupt the entire memory of the console, so you can no longer glitch it, no longer restore it. It's basically a complete bricked system at that point, so just always safe power down the 360 while you're doing the modding process. Right, so let's see if this works now. The only thing that I didn't bother retinning the pads, so we might be slightly short on a bit of solder on some of those pads, so we might find this one still fails, but if it does, it's more than likely just I haven't put enough solder on some pads. But hopefully this will boot now. Oh no, this is interesting. So we've still got an issue. So do we whip that? I can't see us having two bad chips. Do we whip that chip off and see if we still get issues? Because that is a bit strange. I said like we might have had not enough solder on some of them pins, so I can still inspect them, but it's unlikely we've got too bad. Yeah. Just take off the mod chip and putting back on. Yeah, so let's just take off the last RAM we did and get it booting back to where we had it to make sure there's just not a coincidence that something else has gone on it while we were installing that RAM chip. So the last one we did was this one. Let's just double check that I don't have any missing pads first, because I didn't inspect this after I soldered this one down and just put them down quick. Now all them are rock solid, so there's no issue with soldering there, which I kind of don't want to take it off because I can't see that being an issue, but it's probably the safest option because something's changed. Just looking basically see if I can see anything that's potentially gone wrong first, like solder flying somewhere when we've been soldering. Yeah, actually that's a point. You could have a broken trace on this slot, so that this actual slot of RAM, even though it's on right, might not then have all the signals, which is then a problem because you're not gonna realistically find that on a multi-layer board either. So let's just check the other side of the board where we've been soldering that to make sure it hasn't nudged an existing one. No, that's fine. Just rechecking all the ones we've put on as well in case some of the pins were potentially just partially on and then they've floated since then, but no, everything looks solid. So I think let's just hot air that chip off, test it without. If that works, we'll put him on the other slot so we can prove if it's the chip or the socket. If it's the socket, we're kind of screwed because then we might as well use another board basically at that point. We're not repairing as such, we're upgrading an Xbox original. We're adding an extra 64 meg of RAM, so it's got 128. So that's the chip back off. There's no shorts on there. So hopefully this will boot again, and then we'll just jump onto the other socket first and check if the chip's working. And then it might be a resistor pack, it might be something simple, but hopefully we don't still have frag, because that'll be a pain, because then we're in a bit of a situation if this doesn't boot still. And the other problem with these boards is it doesn't always happen, but simply the age of them and the fact that they're like probably an 8-layer board, I think. You can just work on them like this and fracture a trace inside the board just from working on it, and you'll never find that problem. Hopefully we don't have a major issue and this will just boot, and then it's something to do with that socket. But I think either way, the fact that socket still doesn't work is a little bit concerning. We've either got 2 bad RAM chips, which is the best situation, or we're going to still have frag, and we're kind of, yeah, this is still fragging, so something's gone wrong inside the board from putting that one on, which is kind of a pain, because that could be anything now. So it's not even the chip, it's literally from putting that chip on, something's fragged the board. So let's just have a visual inspection and then see where we go from there, really. But all we do know is this was fully working until we put this last RAM chip on, and all we've done is worked in this area. So the only thing I noticed is when I was soldering around here, one blob of solder went over to here. So whether we've got something shorting. Camera's looking fine on mine. It might just be either your signal or the stream going up to YouTube at the minute. It should resolve itself, but the stream on my end looks fine at the minute. Just let me know if it fixes itself. Yeah, so I can't see anything up there. The other thing that could have happened, which is much more unlikely, is one of the working chips that we've fit on here, like, has since failed, sort of thing. So it's gone from working to not working, which could happen. But no, there's nothing on here I can see. So what I'm probably going to do is just clean the board quite firmly in case there's any residual solder blobs anywhere, especially in this area. And then I suppose we might as well take them other RAM chips off if we can reuse them. Because I've got a feeling if this is fragged doing that, we haven't really done anything that could be undone visually. So the only thing we've got on here is the solder joints we've done and where solder's ran. So if it's fragged putting that last one on, either the chips we've just put on have randomly failed, which we'll remove after, or something that's more than likely potentially something inside the traces just from warming up the old boards on and off might have damaged something. And there is something I was going to do, which I never got round to, is we can tap into, I think it's like the I2C or the SPI, I think it's I2C on here, to read out the Xbox will typically boot, and on, I don't know if it's on the BIOS or the PIC chip, I think it's the PIC chip that'll signal out what it's failing about, because it's the PIC chip here that's telling the fan to go on off and fail to boot. And it can be temperature sensor, it can be South Bridge, it can be the RAM chips, it can be the focus chip, I think up here can cause it. So we can get a bit more info if I can ever get around to writing the software that kind of reads those error codes. But for now, at the minute, if you get frag doing stuff like this, it isn't worth the time investigating beyond the basics, because it literally can be anywhere. We tend to just swap the boards out if so. If we get a frag doing this, and just get, you know, the same revision board and do the work again, is generally quicker. And then I keep these boards. I've got a pile of fragged Xboxes that when I get the time to write the software, we can always jump back on and you know, look at it then. By the ports when you last swapped it out, yeah, we can look at that after. Let's just see if we get anything on this. It'd be nice if this booted just from a clean. No, it looks like it's exactly the same. Yeah, so just a random frag. Let's put another BIOS on, even though the problem is now the other BIOSes I don't think will boot because we haven't got the right amount of RAM. But let's try that anyway. And then if not, we're going to have to unfortunately undo our work, remove the RAM chips, and see if we can get the... Yeah, that's not going to boot us, that's a shame. So let's just remove the RAM chips that we've put on and see if we can get boot back to stock, but that can happen sometimes. So where were we looking at with these ports, were we thinking? Because it's on this side, isn't it, that we've worked on last. So the only place we've realistically done anything or worked on is in this area. This is like, it was working until we flipped the board over and then put a chip on here. So I can only see an issue being around here, and with that chip now off, unless we've done some damage somewhere else, which I can't see. I think we've just had some bad luck there. The only other thing as well is the mod chips D0 still on with all the heat. Yeah, that's still solid. That's fine. Let me just look around this area. Nice to just find a solder blob or something, but if it is a solder blob, it's stuck because we've cleaned the board quite heavily as well. Nothing there. No, nothing. Unfortunately, is standing out anywhere. I can't see anything in the area we've worked in. That's just a cap. No, okay, so I think the quickest thing for now then, to see if this is even recoverable, is let's whip off the chips we've put on. Which, if we just look up the image first. If Just want to make sure I don't take off the original chips. So I think then it was these outer two we put on then, based on the image of a stock one. I can't be bothered to go grab one, it was quicker to Google. So scream at me if I'm about to do it wrong, but I'm pretty sure it's this one that we put on. Basically this outer one and this outer one look like the two that we put on. Yeah, I can't see anything visually on top that's an issue. Job get monotonous? Rarely. It can do, but we tend to get enough variety in, and I do that many things that I'm not always in this room just doing the repairs. I'm rarely in here, to be honest. I'm normally doing more the business side of things, making new products and hardware and all that stuff. No, I think there's enough variety in it that we're not stagnant in what we do, so you don't really get bored of it. It's also slightly possible that the chip underneath the one we just put on, so an original, has just failed with the heat of putting the new one on, but again, very unlikely. The chips rarely die with heat. I've got a feeling it's just going to be, you'd hope it was just going to be one of these RAM chips we've just put on have happened to fail. But we shall see if this gets us anywhere. Right, that's all off. Okay, no shorts. That's all off. Okay, so this now should boot in any system. We could even disable, like say we could remove the short we've put on the top of the cap, and this should boot now into the stock system because there's nothing else. So we don't even need the mod chip on, so that eliminates the mod chip of being a problem. And we've ultimately just taken this board now back to where it was before we worked on it, so we'll see if this has now got, you know, a problem from the work we've done or not. So let's see. Do we get, and what we're looking at here, you see the fan. If it spins and stops and spins and stops like this 3 times, that's basically frag, and it's still doing it. So that's completely dead. That's now an unknown issue that obviously it could be the chips, but we've taken them all off, so it's not that. We've taken the mod chip off, so whatever's gone wrong with this one, it's either we've got a little stray blob of solder from tinning the boards, or more than likely we've got I think an internal fracture on the board. So I reckon it's from putting this one on here. We've got obviously a multi-layer board and just some hairline fracture inside potentially. which is no issue because, like I say, we've got plenty of these boards. It's not an issue that we can't fix. It's just the frags are the ones I really want to kind of dig into a bit more when I get the time, and like I say, write some software so we can have some diagnostics, because even though we know exactly where we were at the time of this happening, we literally can't see an issue. And we're basically shooting in the dark. You can go like, right, maybe it's the existing RAM chips have died or things like that all can happen. But it just isn't worth the diagnostics time at the minute until we either write some software to help us, or we have some other ways to diagnose beyond what we're doing. But obviously you've all seen that it was fully working until we put this chip on, and just working in this area has killed it. So that's how easy these things can happen. Just having one final glance around to see if we can see, and then I'll just get another board anyway. I'll just do the same thing on another board and go through the exact same steps basically. It doesn't often happen. Well, I'll say it doesn't often happen. It happens semi-often. But unfortunately on this one it happened when we're one chip away from finishing the job. Well, that's how it goes sometimes. Now you'd think just naturally it would have to be something around this area, but I can't see anything wrong at all in that area, unfortunately. Nothing at all seems out of place or damaged. So one last check, I guess, on camera, see if anybody else sees anything, and just shout up if you do, and if not, we'll call this one one for the bin of future diagnostics and just grab another one to finish this job off. Well, this is where we were. Obviously there's no shorts on these pins. I've checked all these by eye, but these wouldn't matter anyway now because they're not connected. Other than a short, they wouldn't matter, and there's no shorts on them. This is close, but again I've looked at this under the scope and I can't see any issues with that. All the components that need to be on seem to be on. This one we never got to, so this is the last chip that would have got done. But in case anything flew over here, you'd think it would be RAM related, but obviously we never even got to that area. The place I thought I maybe saw some solder fling was, we were tinning this pad and I think a ball of solder rolled this way and I saw it go to here, so I just kind of flicked off. So that's the only thought. I thought maybe something happened over here, you know, a slight blob of solder, but I've inspected and I can't see anything. Yeah, there's nothing in this area. Let me maybe inspect the remaining RAM chips, because I don't know. I don't think it's going to be the RAM chips that were already on just failing. That's too much of a coincidence. Yeah, and it was definitely working. So if it isn't there, flip over. This is the other side of the board where the heat was effectively being applied. So let's just focus that in. And I've purposely lifted this wire here, so this one's loose just to boot off the stock OS now, so ignore that being loose. But this is the other side of the board where, you know, something may have happened because the heat was coming from the other side of the board. Anything fell off here? Don't think so. Now I don't think that's meant to be on, and it looks like there's flux already around there. We're slightly out of focus, so let me pull that focus a bit. There we go, a bit better focus. So now I think we've just been unlucky on that one. The other thing is, I don't think it would have got warm enough, but the MCP is near-ish the heat. So the heat, yeah, I think it's far enough away. We've got the heat was applied here, and we flip over, the chip is there, so it's a good distance away from heat. So I'd say the only suspect would be that RAM chip, but no, I don't think we're going to see anything on here, unfortunately. But anyway, the point of this was to kind of show you guys how to solder these chips. You don't really care that whether this works or not. I'll get this working for the customer. It's not really a problem. The main thing I wanted to show off was finding the best technique to solder these on, and I think we were actually at the best technique on the back here, which was to just pre-warm the board with a hot air station right before reflowing the pins, and that seemed to work the best. So when I come to do the next one, I'll practice on doing them that way, and we'll see if that's the the quickest way of getting the chips on. And then when I get time, I definitely want to make the little bit of software to run and diagnose the I2C coming off the pick, so we can actually read it. I think that's going to be massively beneficial, and we've got this one and another fragged one. The only other thing I could do, I wonder if the thing people keep mentioning, one of the most watched TikToks I did, probably a year ago now, I bet, was an Xbox original that fragged randomly, similar to this, and just touching in this LPC area. So, zoom out a minute. Just touching my finger over this area restored the boot. So I'm wondering if it's that, like if we've just got a similar relatable random issue, which is, we obviously haven't figured out what that is yet either. Ever seen Easy D0? I'm not sure what you're meaning by that. Obviously D0 is the pad we short down here, and all I do for mod chips is I just tack onto the VIA here and then solder it to the top of that cap for ground, which at the minute is floating, so I just make sure that's lifted out of the way. This should then boot from the original BIOS, and because the RAM chips are off, that shouldn't be a problem. So we should be good for stock boot now, and it'll output the LEDs on the front panel as you'd expect, whereas if you have custom BIOSes on, you can't treat the front of this console like you'd expect. So let's just see if we still get the... Yep, so we get that fan spin, slow down, fan spin, slow down, and at the same time these lights come on, fan spin, slow down, and then it just stays on permanent and flashes. So the green, you can ignore the colour of the LED, because that will change if you disconnect this, and try that again. You'll get a combined error, where I think this has been modded on the front. So this would be flashing different colours as well. So yeah, I think the lights on this are just... Yeah, the front panel of the crystal doesn't have the coloured lights, so you're not going to see the errors in terms of colour codes, but this overrides every error, this kind of flashing error. So we can ignore the colour because this is an error that just overrides everything. So let's just spray and see if we... There you go, it's booting. Exactly the same error as the one we never solved. Da-da! So this is 2 now, where there's something on these Xboxes. You might go have to watch that TikTok. So there's something in this area here, right here, this area. That's where I've sprayed IPA. As soon as something happens around here, it will work and not work. So yeah, this is now back to fully working, and that's just can't detect the hard drive. So everything we've just undone, do we do again? Should have probably checked that first. So this, the thing is this just going to have the error when it's dried off again, because that's what the other one did. But yeah, this is the joys of Xboxes. I'll let that dry off a minute, and then if so, there's going to be a common fault around here, something with heat. And I've done this, like, I'm going to have to go and watch the TikTok. Let me find the link and I'll tell you guys to watch the TikTok after, because it's exactly what happened. This is what happened several times. I've got a few in storage with this error. Let me see if I can find if anyone's got the link to that Xbox TikTok as well, definitely feel free to share it. I'm just going to try and look it up now. I should be able to find it fairly quick. Flashing red light fix. SSD silent fan. Original flashing red light. Well, I've done a lot of videos on here. Actually can't find it. Or I can't see it. I've done 35 videos on the Xbox in a section. Original flashing red light.
Today, another
Pause that. I'll know because I basically poked my finger on the board. Yeah, it's not that one. No, it's not going to be temperature. Yeah, I think we are going to have to definitely call this the Luke fault because I definitely keep breaking the damn things. I can't find it anyway, but if somebody finds that, definitely comment it in the stream. But yeah, the issue is around here. I'm just not sure whether we work back on it yet because now it's got that kind of fault. You'll probably find this now will not boot again. Or if I dry it with IPA, you'll instantly get the 3-fan boot. So I think there's going to be a resistor. I think we probably just want to replace all the resistors and caps in this area because it was 100%. I could tap just over these components last time. I isolated it right down to these components. And I know it's these components that cause it. So if it is that exact issue, which it looks like it is, that I've had before, there you go, we're back to the error. So see the fan spin, and fail boot. And nothing on screen. That's exactly the issue. So turn off and on. We're not going to change temperature. We're going to spray that area once with IPA, turn on. Still got the error. So let's see if we can find the point. But it's going to be in this area. In fact, you probably don't even need the IPA, you can probably just touch it. Or is it in here? You know what it might be? This might be poor solder. Yeah, we're not going to be as lucky as it down in this area. Oh, what a shame. Well, can we get under there? But this is proving how intermittent this issue is. There's definitely either poor solder or trace damage there causing that intermittent boot. Yeah, let's just do a quick reflow in that area because if we're not dealing with trace damage, we are definitely dealing with poor solder if not. And reflowing, you know, warming up the board could move the old solder and fracture old solder joints. So let's have a quick go at fixing this bit. So we'll just put flux in this area, reflow them with the hot air first. We'll probably reflow this chip up here as well, and this here, and ignore that area for now. Right, so a quick reflow. If we get a consistent boot after reflowing, we might be confident to just redo the work again, but it'd be nice to almost isolate exactly which component fails if it is common. But the chances are more than likely going to be that it is. That camera does not like focusing on. See if I can zoom in so you can see something other than the lens, just so you're looking at something going on. Oh, where's that going? Let me put that back under there. Aim this somewhere right where we're working at least, so you see. But yeah, it'd be nice to, like I say, find out which chip or which pad or which component is typically the thing that fails. But we know whatever it was simply caused by warming that RAM slot up. I'm probably going to reflow just these bits here, then I'll maybe reflow the RAM last in case, because my thought is that if we're going down bad solder route, the obvious thing is going to be the RAM that was just directly under where we were warming up, so this RAM chip. So it's literally underneath the RAM chip we warmed up, so that might well be the cause, but I've reflowed everything else around it first to see if that's the problem, and if not, and then we specifically just reflow that RAM chip, it might just be the RAM chip itself. It can be the NVIDIA chip, it can be anything, but based on the tests we've just done, spraying IPA on kind of highlights when there's poor solder or broken traces normally, and the fact that we've had this working and it failed after we heated it up, my bet is actually on poor solder this time, hopefully, and not broken trace. So let's just see where we're at with this, but unless I can get this very consistently booting again, we're not going to redo the work on it, because if we're dealing with potentially a bad trace, this is no good for, warrantying the work for the customer. We don't want to do a job that just works and we've seen an issue and we don't, solve the issue where we feel it's going to last. Then we won't offer this as a solution to the customer. We'll leave this just a minute to cool down first as well. Yeah, it could well be the solder balls under the NVIDIA chip as well, which I don't think I've got any stencils for reballing that, and I'm pretty sure it's it's obviously a BJ, so I haven't got the stencils to reball it, and reflowing it's often worse than reballing as well. A bit of sponge under the GPU, yes there is. Glad you're liking the Game Boy repairs. We've had quite a few requests for them. Like I say, I rarely work on the Game Boys because I just leave them up to Zach, but quite a lot of you seem to want to see the Game Boy repairs as well. I probably should do, because that's probably the main seller. Like, it's literally the thing we sell the most is Game Boys. Second to Game Gears. Maybe, to be honest, the Game Gears might overtake the Game Boys, but I don't think so. I think Game Boys are literally number one. Right, power's in that, so I don't really care about output. No, so still intermittent fan spin. So I'll tell you what, pushing on the RAM chip. Yeah, no, I don't think it's that. I don't think it's going to be the RAM chip either. I'm wondering whether it's something to do with the super cap area. It looks quite nasty. Let's oh, we just had orange light on there as well. The lights are working again. Yeah, that's not working. This area. That's annoying. I wish I knew where. I had the magic spray the first time and hit straight on where we needed it to be. Let's try and coordinate this side of the board. So that half of the board avoiding the RAM. I wonder if it was a flex. Push on here. No, that's annoying. Let's try up here. Nope. That's a shame. So I don't think we're going to find a consistent, at least not quickly, we're not going to find a consistent solution to this, I don't think. I could try spraying the bottom of the board because maybe the IPA had flown underneath when we come to do the test, or something else. But I reckon it's going to be a failed resistor or simple component somewhere. But like I say, there, I think the fact it's not that stable, yeah, it's just completely intermittent. Let's heat it up with air while it's still on. Unplug power, drain the caps. Right, let's just give this RAM a little quick reflow for the sake, but I doubt it's that. It's going to be just like that. It's definitely going to be something like that frag video I did. There's going to be an issue down by this corner that touching it in just the right spot makes it boot. And I think it must be a common failure point, I think, where it prevents boot. That's that RAM chip reflowed. Power supply, I don't. It could be. It's unlikely. It's like I say. This is why I don't like the kind of the frag error. There's no more feedback yet until we read off the. We need to read what the I2C interface is telling us the issue is, because you can even have what I found out fairly recently was if you have a bad ID ribbon cable or a slow ID to SATA converter for a hard drive, that can cause a frag. Whereas originally it was just thought that frags were only well, this main one, the 3 fan spinning off, was just a temperature sensor down here, which it can be, and the temperature sensor could have failed, and I have a spare one, so I could maybe just quickly swap that out. But we've since found out it obviously can be a lot more than just that, and it seems like it could almost be anything. It can be the RAM, it can be there you go, it's working. Plug in the back drive, so maybe it was just the RAM. Well, I'll say it's working. Yeah, there you go, so full boot. And that was just reflowing the RAM, so maybe it was the obvious, the Occam's razor, which is just we heated the RAM chip from underneath and the RAM on top just slightly hadn't got enough solder, so probably should have just stuck with the most obvious thing, I guess. Yeah, the temp sensor makes it, the overheating is literally what we see. Spin, stop, spin, stop, spin, stop, stay on. That is the overheating, well, what we all thought was the overheating. But that literally happens for a million reasons now we figured out. So let's just check. Let's just spray it with all IPA, make things change and react different to make sure it still comes on consistent. No, see? So it's dead again. So just, there's something inside this board I think fractured. Because IPA should not have just changed the boot if we'd reflowed the if we reflowed the RAM, then IPA wouldn't change the behaviour. IPA would only change the behaviour if it was still, you know, some underlying issue. So we've definitely got an underlying issue in, I think, component or traces of this board, unfortunately. Just dry up the IPA, make sure it's not just the fact IPA is on the board causing the issue, but I don't like the inconsistency of it. Yeah, it's still dead, so no, we're not gonna touch this board. I'm gonna recommend to the customer. They can obviously see this video, they can see the work done. We can point them to this as showing it off. But the inconsistency of this not booting after just swapping a chip, I don't think this is something we've directly caused in a sense. I think it's just the age of the board, unfortunately, and from adding the RAM chips, it's something inside's fractured or failed, and swapping this board's only like £20, it's not much. So I don't think it'll be a problem, and I'll probably just crack on with the work anyway, get it done. For the customer, sometimes I just do it free of charge anyway. But shall we just maybe swap that? I'll take that temp sensor off just as a last resort. I'll show you where it is and then I'll take it off. So it is this one here. This is what typically always caused that issue, so I'm just going to whip off U6F1 and put a new one on. Well, we'll take it off and show you what happens when you try to boot without it, because you're literally getting the exact same issue, unfortunately. You're getting the kind of the fan spin. So that's him off. And if we go for boot now, power's in, that's on. So no, temperature sensor. See, now I always thought the temperature sensor was on, off, on, off, on, off. Temperature sensor is just full fan spin and not going on, off, on, off, on, off. So it won't be that, which I could have sworn when I have had the issue, tell a lie. The temperature sensor can fail, but I bet all that's doing is pulling the I2C rail low, and then it's causing a communication issue. So it's not actually a temperature issue that causes that, but it can be a failed temperature sensor messing up the communication line. So that explains it. So basically, full fan spin constant and nothing else happening is your temperature sensor being missing completely or bad in a way that doesn't actually kill the system. It says to the system it's overheating. So that kind of explains that. And you know what it could be? It could be anything sitting on the I2C rail, actually. That's probably what it is. It's probably something sitting on the I2C rail that isn't quite communicating right. So that when it boots and tries to read it, all these devices are talking, and one of them just intermittently failing and sending back corrupt data, so then it just doesn't boot, basically. Yeah, so interestingly there, we've taken that off and it's still got the overheat issue, and that's just been taken off and put back on. So maybe that is on its way out. Let's try once more. There you go, and then back to boot. This is, I'm going to swap that for a new one, maybe. See the orange light thing, there's no LEDs on the crystal green, there's only 2 LEDs, so I don't think you're actually going to get any other colour. I could have sworn I spotted orange at some point, but no, oh no, they were 3-pin. They're a 3-pin LED, so yeah, could be a You could also have some trace damage at the front here for the LED, but that's a minor thing. What am I doing? I'm breaking and fixing an Xbox over and over. So we were meant to be doing a 128 meg upgrade, and since then I've broken the Xbox and then fixed it again, then broke it again, then fixed it again. So at the minute, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm trying to figure out what's wrong, basically. So maybe it was that temp sensor. But now it's working on and off. Do we try kill it with the IPA again? Yep, dead again. So I should stop spraying it with IPA. There's clearly an issue on the board though, that could be anywhere. So I think we'll just go ahead and swap this. I think we'll just swap the board. I think it's less work than figuring out what's gone wrong on this, because you reflow this, well, pretty much a reflow anywhere is the thing. You can reflow down here and it starts working. Reflow here, it started working. Sprayed IPA started working from being failed. Spray IPA stops it working. It's everything. So there's something on this board there you go working here, and we can't rely on it at all. And unless I can pinpoint exactly what makes it work and stop work, we can't even clean this board and be confident that it's just not going to die on us. That's the sad thing of this one. Let's just dry the IPA up, but turning back off. Try again. See, now he's just teasing me with working constantly. But IPA kills him, so yeah, IPA could be messing with the temp sensor, but as we've proven in one way, when you take off the temp sensor, the fan spins fully. It doesn't do the on off. No, I'm not killing it on purpose, it's just by mistake. We were basically fitting a chip under here and then it died completely. And then we've been trying to find what has potentially killed it in terms of like trace damage. Sprayed it with IPA to see if it was a common issue I had a while back, and it literally booted and started working again. So we focused in this area, which it then worked again and then failed again, and now I'm just trying to see if I can consistently keep it alive, basically, because I don't want to do all this work and it just die again. But it's literally, why are you now working? The only thing we did was reflowed. Like, the only thing that's consistently seems to be working is we've reflowed this temp sensor. We've taken it off, put it back on, but spraying IPA on it, let's see if that stops it. We want to try and kill it where we can be very specific with the IPA and see, what area of the board is killing it. So that's maybe a plan. Precision death. No, so nothing around there stops it. Yeah, that's what I've just pretty much done there. Temp sensor area is flooded with IPA now. Oh, there you go. Flooded it with IPA and it fails. So that's now dead. Let's dry that area up. But dripping IPA on through a cloth, touching it didn't make it fail. See, and now the temp sensor's failed again. Now it's actually temp sensor failure, but I have hot aired the temp sensor, so the temp sensor's boiling. That's probably why. Yeah, that's literally what we're doing. It's working. Kill it with IPA. Yeah, so it's working. Do we I don't think you can short the temp sensor to bypass it. It communicates on I2C, and if you don't tell it that it's okay with a bit of code, it'll then just high fan spin basically. I don't know. Shall we kill it again with IPA? Shall we actually? Let's try putting IPA everywhere except the temp sensor area to see if it is really related to just the fact that the temp sensor gets wet, it turns into a gremlin. Let's see. Yeah, so I think we might be on something. I think IPA over the temp sensor kills it. I can replace the temp sensor, I've got one here, a new one, but I don't think it's that. It will probably replace it if it is, but let's see. Dead. Yep, dead. So at least we know how to kill it now. Consistent death, so let's dry that up. What part of the Xbox isn't working? It was fully working until we did the RAM, and that's what we're trying to figure out, what part is now not working. I'm pretty sure we've nailed it down to this. I think that's working, isn't it? Or is that still? Yeah, so this is more like what it was doing when we first reflowed, so maybe it needs a bit more time to dry, or we haven't dried it enough. But we seem to be down to the temp sensor area. Does seem to be causing this. Yeah, the problem with IPA is it can cause loads of issues. It can detect broken traces or failing components. It can it can fix a trace that's partially broken. It's also break a trace that's not quite broke. So it works both ways. IPA does, but I think we are in the right area. I don't know whether we keep doing this. It's making quite a good stream, just killing. I should just rename the stream to killing and reviving an Xbox until it's had enough. Capture cards, I'm just using Camlink 4s, 4Ks, but the reason they're so high quality is that I'm using like Blackmagic cameras and OBS bot cameras. This one is a Tail 2. So I presume this will now hopefully work because everything's dry. Yeah, so we're in. I think we're on the right area. I don't like the fact that spraying that temp sensor makes it fail. So let's swap the temp sensor then. Let's do this. New temp sensor, check it still works, then spray IPA on the new temp sensor to see if we kill the new one. Sounds like a plan to me. And then maybe if the temp sensor's on its way out, the IPA is just interfering with it internally some way, because it'll be an analog chip inside there to convert voltage, so it's going to be sensitive to IPA. But I'd love to be able to, well, I could make a little bit of Raspberry Pi code when I get time, like a Raspberry Pi Pico, just to replace the temp sensor and sit and listen on the line and just say everything's okay all the time regardless, to see if, you know, it's something related to a temp sensor, or, you know, the entire circuitry of the temp sensor. Right. This went from one kind of stream to another. This was meant to be a RAM swap, and we've turned into just killing things now. I'll let this cool naturally without IPA, though. We don't want to introduce IPA yet, because that's kind of the problem we have. Why do I have two chips that look different? This might not even be a temp sensor. I think it is, though. Still a little bit warm. Come on, hurry up and cool down. Bum, bum, bum. Do. Impatient, come on, cool down. Oh, I'm going to spray you with IPA. Sorry, let's go. Yeah, he's still working. Shall we kill it? Time to die. And what do we reckon? Have we killed it with IPA? Damn it! Dead again. So it's not the temp sensor, it's just the temp sensor area. So I don't know what... I don't like it, but if we keep it dry, it's going to be fine. So do we just put a sticker on, don't get wet, and don't feed after midnight, and then just think the customer's okay with that? I think what I might do is give the customer an option that we can do this work on it, and as long as you don't wet your Xbox, you're probably okay. Or you could pay 20 quid, and we'll swap the board out for another one that doesn't mind getting wet, and still works. I don't know at this point. So that, I presume, maybe if it's dry enough, will start working again. Yep, so it literally doesn't like getting wet. So, is that a problem? Is that, are we just like effectively, are we doubting an area that's analog on the board that literally won't operate correctly when there's IPA, and it's just as simple as that? But then how did we get IPA when we reflowed over here? How did we get IPA or wet over here? I don't think we did, but maybe we did. So, I'll see. I might just, I'll get back to the customer either way first, I think, to check what he wants to do. Whether he wants to have the RAM chips installed on this one or swap the board, otherwise we're doing a load of work for nothing. But that seems to be stable now. I think we have actually found the issue. But whether I'm happy with that, I kind of don't like the fact that it's doing that, but it might be normal. Like I say, if there is analog circuitry here, IPA will affect it, and if it's pulling something to make it think there's a problem, then it makes sense. So yeah, I think we'll have to obviously ask the customer on this one before we carry on. But that's obviously the point of that, was to show you installing these chips and how you test it, so you kind of know how to do that anyway. And then I'll just go and finish this one off, I think. So that'll be it for this one, I think. Hope everyone enjoyed that one, and I'll try and get these commands and things working on something other than Twitch. And yeah, I'll get another Xbox and try the IPA, see if it makes it die. If it does make another board die, then I'll just use this board because it's obviously normal. And it would kind of make sense why, if people are working on it and you're cleaning the board, then it just stops working. That it's literally, you just got to be careful of this area and make sure it's super dry before you do anything. So I'll do that as well. But yeah, that's it for this one, guys, and I'll see you in the next one.